Hello and welcome to another episode of Hoosier State Hoops. I am Drew Everhart. My co-host is Kris Mills, as always. Big thank you goes out to our presenting sponsor, Beth Prince State Farm. If you need a quote for your car or home, give Beth and her team a call at their office in Shelbyville. Number is 317-392-3922. On this episode, we will be talking about the Indiana Fever, who have clinched a spot in the playoffs for the first time since 2016. So let's get right into the questions. Kris, what are your thoughts on this playoff run?
Yeah, it's kind of been a busy week for the Fever. There's been a lot going on. Won some awards. We'll talk about those in a second. But I guess that the biggest news of the week is the Fever clinching uh, first playoff spot since 2016. And just real quick, so the Fever, we're recording this podcast on Wednesday night, and the Fever beat the Sparks. But kind of how they clinched the playoff spot was on Tuesday night. The Atlanta Dream and the Chicago Sky, they both lost. So that helped the Fever clinch the spot. But yeah, first appearance since this will be the first appearance since 2016, which is kind of interesting because from 2005 to 2016, the Fever made 12 consecutive playoff appearances. So it was kind of a long drought for the Fever, but it's exciting to see them not only secure a spot, but like there's still. I think after tonight's game, there's still 6 games left, so it's not like it really came down to the wire or anything. So, but one of the things I thought was interesting, just looking over things on X and everything. But so the 5 starters for the Fever, Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull, Nalissa Smith, and Aaliyah Boston, they were all drafted by the Fever, and they're all going to make their first playoff appearance together this year. So, as far as like building a team, building a franchise, like the Fever kind of did it like, I'm not saying the old school way because obviously there's not as many trades and movement in the WNBA, but like it's kind of cool. Like all those girls are going to experience that together for the first time. So, Kelsey Mitchell, she's been there 7 seasons and she's never played in the playoffs. So great for Kelsey Mitchell, who's really been on fire lately. But, just kind of one other thing I wanted to add about this is like, so obviously the Fever don't have a lot of playoff experience, but like the top 4 teams in the WNBA right now, like they have a ton of playoff experience. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of shakes out and if that makes a difference. But just the Las Vegas Aces, who won back-to-back championships the last 2 years, they have 273 games of combined experience between the players. And the next is Connecticut Sun with 222 games. After that, it's New York Liberty with 168 games. And then the Lynx, Minnesota Lynx, have 130 games. So that's a lot of playoff experience. Like I said, Aces are back-to-back champions. The best team in the league right now by record is New York at 27-6, but they've never won a WNBA championship. So I think these playoffs will be really exciting. I can't really speak to like years past, but there's just a lot of interesting things to look at when we reach the playoffs later this month.
The 2016 Indiana Fever was Tamika Catching's last year within the league. So, I mean, we had Tamika then, and now we're making the playoffs. Caitlin Clark, Leah Boston, all of them. Seems like pretty good company, if you ask me.
Oh, absolutely. We have, obviously Kelsey Mitchell's been a star for a while, but we have some really, really young talent, and some future stars. Obviously, Caitlin Clark is already a star.
Now I'm going to ask you a question. Did you think this was going to happen at the beginning of this year? Let's go back maybe even to the draft, getting Caitlin Clark. Did you think this was going to be a playoff team this year? Did you think it was going to have to take a year or two to develop?
That's a tough question because I
Because
wasn't someone
I'll
who,
say I did not expect a playoff run for this team's first year.
and I think that's fair. And I think people who have watched the WNBA more than you and I would probably say the same thing. But for me, like I feel like I didn't know enough to really have an idea of like, okay, would they maybe sneak in? But like I didn't expect them to be the sixth place team right now with 6 games to go. I thought it would be one of those things where it came down to like they would sneak in, but there were some other people during the broadcast I was listening to tonight. The play-by-play, his name is Pat Boylan, but he was talking about how maybe the Fever are ahead of schedule. And Kris decides when she was hired, they asked her, when would you expect to make the playoffs? And I think she said by year three, maybe by year three, hopefully by year four. So as far as that goes, they are ahead of schedule because this is year two for her. So yeah. So for me, I didn't really know what to expect. So I don't really have the best answer on that.
No, it's fair. I just wanted to gauge where you were at the beginning of the year. Now you mentioned Christy Side, or yes, Christy Sides, excuse me. She was named WNBA Coach of the Month for August. This is our first episode. We were talking about her potentially being fired from the Fever, now Coach of the Month, a playoff position. What are your thoughts overall on Christy Sides?
No, that's a good point because I remember we did talk about that, and it seemed like a lot of the chatter on Twitter or X was like about, is she doing a good job or, fire her? If something bad happened, it was obviously her fault, but like that's pretty common when it comes to sports. A lot of people want to point blame to the head coach, but yeah, it is crazy. We're talking about now, um, WNBA Coach of the Month, which I found this to be surprising too, that this is the first time in franchise history for the Fever that a head coach has won this award. So I believe it started in 2010, this award. So there were obviously there's history before that, but just to talk about why she won the award, Indiana was 5-1 in August. They scored a league best 89.7 points per game. They also made the most threes in the month with 72. And as far as like their offensive rating, it was the best among all teams in the league at 110.7. So their lone loss came to Minnesota, which in my opinion right now, Minnesota is second or third. Looks like they're third right now in the league standings. But I feel like they're probably the best team just from what I've seen. So that was their lone loss, not a bad loss. Yeah, that's some of the numbers behind it. But like in my opinion on sides, like the one thing I like about her, and I think the players really like about her, is like she just brings this like infectious like energy. Like it's just like she's so full of energy. She really wants them to focus on defense, which I think, some of the players on the team, maybe like Caitlin Clark is not used to playing or focusing on defense as much. Like she
Mm-hmm.
just demands that. She's always like, if you watch her on the sideline, she's always like up and down. She's squatting, she's jumping up and down. She's like, so, and I think that rubs off on the rest of the team. So, yeah, obviously she deserves this award, and for her to make, it's tough to coach a player like Caitlin Clark. So I think she's made adjustments. She's kind of let Caitlin be herself, but also like, hey, let's fix some of these small things you're doing. So yeah, I think she deserves a ton of credit and definitely deserves this award.
Not only is it hard to coach someone like Caitlin Clark, it's hard to coach professionals in general because they've been around the game so long. And when you try to teach them, not teach them, but you try to coach them up on some like rudimentary stuff, it gets kind of repetitive. They've heard it a million times before. They want to hear it anymore. So that, not to say this is all professionals, but I've heard stories of like, you tune out, professionals will tune out the coach.
Right.
And so I think, and from what I saw, especially tonight, they really respond to what she has to say. Like there was a part where Caitlin Clark was talking to a referee kind of out of the game, which we've all been there. You're talking to a ref, you kind of don't realize the game's still going on. But Sides points to Clark saying go as she's shooting the second free throw because, hey, we got to get it going down the court here. So I think that's something really important. And also, that Minnesota game was Maya Moore's jersey retirement, right?
Yep. Yep.
So, I mean, that game had some extra juice behind it for the Lynx. So that may have been a Fever win if it wasn't such a special night. Who knows?
Right. I believe those two teams play on Friday of this week. So
Ooh,
that'll be a great game. So yeah, just like as far as coach of the year goes, Caitlin, you're talking about Caitlin. She's actually pretty coachable for a player who's so
she
talented. And
is.
I don't like, I'm not in the locker room. I don't see it all the time or what their conversations are like, but I just feel like it could have been easy for maybe Caitlin to be even more frustrated than she was at the beginning of the season when things weren't working out, and she stuck with it. And now it appears like Coach Sides, Caitlin Clark, and really the whole team has, they have great relationships. So Yeah, as far as being a star player, Caitlin's coachable, but also I feel like Coach Sides is, she's like down to earth. She's relatable.
Yeah.
She just wants what's best. She just wants to play the game the right way and win. So I think that they have that obviously the common goal to win. So yeah, great job for for Coach Sides.
The one thing I will say about Caitlin Clark that may get her in the maybe not be so coachable thing is with how much she can talk to referees and kind of throw her arms up and all that. I would assume someone must have told her at this point maybe to not do that so much because okay, so I'm really good friends with Sydney Wagner, who's up at Trine University playing women's basketball. In her sophomore year, she was named All American. And I told her after that year, I said, referees are going to know whether you're an All American. They're going to know what type of player you are. So don't expect too many calls and don't complain too much because they're going to take it against you that much. I think Caitlin Clark really needs to get that as well, even though she's only a rookie. But everyone knows what Caitlin Clark can do and who she is, and they're not going to give her every ticky tack foul.
I agree with that 100%. I have two kind of thoughts with that. Number one, like she knows that all the little kids, boys, girls, whoever in the whole stadium, they're watching her every move.
Mm-hmm.
So, for her to act like that sometimes after a bad call, like that's the one thing I don't like is, and she's even made comments about, like I know that these kids come to the game to watch me, but she knows that it obviously, hey, we're both competitive people. Like you and I get it. We played sports. Like
Yeah.
anybody who played anything knows that there's that competition level. So it's hard to keep that under wraps sometimes, but like you have to know that all these little kids are watching you and they're gonna act the way that you're acting. So, but
Especially
my one
when
little
especially when you look at the replay and it's just she's just dead wrong, and you're like, come on, Caitlin.
yeah, well the one tonight like it bounced off like her teammate's leg and she was like making a
Oh,
big
the
deal
over
about
back, yeah,
yeah, and I was just like, okay, move on from that one. But
that one was
I
bad.
will say this of all the sports like and I feel like I watch a lot of sports. So I'm not saying I watch more sports than anybody else. I just feel like of all the sports that I've seen personally, like the WNBA refs are some of the worst refs of all of major sports, and I have
Oh,
no idea
really?
why. And like I don't usually like. I think college basketball officials can be men's college basketball officials can also be pretty bad, but that's so physical that yeah, we're used to watching Big Ten basketball, which it's maybe when it's so physical, it
Rough
makes it
and
even
tumble.
right. It makes it harder to officiate probably, but like the
Yeah.
WNBA is so physical. And I'll be honest, after every play, it's just like the NBA. After every play, someone is complaining about something, and I would just imagine that gets so annoying when you're the refs. But to be short and sweet about that, like they're not good refs, but you should still not be acting that way.
I agree 100%. We want to take a quick break to thank our presenting sponsor, Beth Prince State Farm. Beth and her team understand what it takes to be a good neighbor. More than anything, they are community focused. Beth has given away scholarships to 2 local seniors in Shelby County the last 2 years. She also hosts an annual Christmas party during downtown Christmas parade and has Barnyard Party Pals come set up at her office. And when it comes to sports, she's always happy to sponsor a local sports team, with Morristown youth football being one current example. If you want to work with people who treat you like family, give Beth and her team a call. The number for her office is 317-392-3922. Their office is located at 308 North Harrison Street in Shelbyville, right next to the Cow Palace. If you want to go online, Beth's website is bethprince.com. All right, Kris, more awards to talk about. Caitlin Clark winning pretty much everything on the face of planet Earth. WNBA Eastern Conference Player of the Month, Rookie of the Month, and Eastern Conference Player of the Week for this past week. It seems like this is a Caitlin Clark podcast now, the amount of times we talk about her awards, but these monthly awards we haven't got to talk about yet.
Yeah, so it is cool that I like, it's funny with her because if we see her like after the game or before the game getting asked these questions about these awards, like she does not care. Like her list of accomplishments, like just seeing her list of accomplishments for her rookie season in the WNBA, like it's like, 15 or 16 bullet points. It's crazy. So,
Yeah.
the one thing that I will say about these awards is this week, obviously like means that her team is playing well, that's what you want. But like the one thing I liked about what she said about these awards is she's like, I think Kelsey Mitchell really deserved this award too. I mean, the rookie of the month, obviously, like Kelsey can't win that, but like the player of the month, player of the week, like Kelsey Mitchell, like she gave her teammate credit, like a teammate who's been with the Fever for 7 years, has been through the downs of, and now kind of experiencing the good times. But like, I just thought that was so cool for her to mention Kelsey, and Kelsey is like the ultimate teammate, and she's
Hmm.
kind of taken Caitlin under her wing. I think Erica Wheeler has too, but that was my initial reaction. But obviously Clark, it's hard to keep track of all the records she's breaking, and it's almost like every day that you get on Twitter or X, it's like something new is popping, is popping up. It's like as someone who's trying to like cover the team, it's like it's a little bit overwhelming. You're like, man, what do I talk about this week with Caitlin? Like, what do I like? What's the angle? Like, what she? It's almost like there's too much to go with. But yeah, like I said, I thought the cool part for me was her mentioning Kelsey Mitchell and how she deserved it.
How hard is it with some players, kind of like Caitlin? You mentioned, because I mean, you write about the Fever and all kinds of sports. Is it hard to find something new to talk about with players like her, especially this early on in her career?
Well, and this is just how I approach like writing and stuff. So I'm not sure if this is how everyone is. I just like to find something different, and sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes you kind of just have to report like what's happening. But I'm someone, and I know you're the same way. But like we read other articles, like we keep up with sports. So when I open social media, like it's a lot of Fever stuff because that's kind of how like my algorithms are they know what I like now. So for me, it's like, I don't know if I've done the best job about finding new different angles, maybe just talking about them in a different way. But yeah, it is hard. Uh, there's almost it's like I like the phrase like keep it simple, stupid. But like with her, it's
Yep.
like there's so much that there's a million different ways you could go with it. So really, what I try to do is just pick something, roll with it, make sure I covered all my bases as far as like the main information like for a game. Make sure I at least have the score in there and leading scores, and try to provide anything that I saw in the game that could be of interest. But yeah, it can be difficult.
Yeah, I was always a person where when I started podcasting, I didn't listen to other podcasts just because I didn't want to like accidentally steal, like a certain topic or anything like that. But now I've started to come back on that, not to like listen for certain topics, but how its production is done or what they do for certain segments and all that, how to come up with certain segments. And I think finding what other people say and trying to have a spin on it to have something different and say, people said this, but here's what I think in a completely different capacity. I think that's important. Yeah, I was just curious because I mean, everyone is talking about Caitlin Clark, so I was just wondering how you try to stand out like that.
Well,
Uh,
no, and it's funny too. A lot of stuff now that you see, is there's been a lot of drama lately with her, and like it's funny because she doesn't even like she's really not even on social media. She doesn't care about the social media drama between. So yeah, it's a lot of good and bad stuff as far as online for Caitlin Clark and the Fever, but I would say mostly good.
that's anyone though, especially as popular as she is, because I mean, well, I mean, she could retire today and be a Hall of Famer just on her impact alone, you know. And so when
Oh yeah.
you're that popular and that impactful to an entire sport, I could not believe the pressure that she is under.
Well, it has to be exhausting, and and that maybe has, with the question that we're on right now is like these awards that she won. Like, I think she's to the point. Like, what makes her a good teammate is like she knows she's really good. She's even said that. But like she knows that she can't win by herself, and I think she's won so many awards over her the last however many years that like she's okay with giving another person credit like Kelsey Mitchell. So she's not one of those stars who's like me, 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 like I think one of those people will probably be like LeBron might be kind of one that you could see in that as being like a selfish person. Although I know he's not like that on the court, but like I don't
Right.
know. She's just not. She's just a Midwestern girl, and pretty down to earth, and she's actually pretty funny. So,
Yeah,
um,
she
so
is.
it's been interesting to see like the different side of her as far as like the goofy side away from the court. That's one thing I've noticed from just from following them this season.
And the thing with me is that Indiana, I know we're in it's a hotbed of basketball, but the media coverage is still huge for Caitlin Clark in Indiana. Imagine if she was with the Liberty or in Vegas or LA. She would be swamped. I don't even think that she could leave like the stadium if she was in any of those bigger cities. But I think Indiana, she still has so much coverage. It's unbelievable.
Oh, it's crazy. So I was listening to a podcast. There's a guy named Scott Agnes, and he covers the Fever and the Pacers, and he jumped on a
Mm-hmm.
podcast with someone else. I can't remember the other person's name, but the guy hosting the podcast was asking him about like is it even possible for you, someone who covers the Fever every day and is at everything, is it even possible for you to get like a 15-minute sit down interview? And Scott, the Fever reporter, he did say it was possible, but like he did kind of go into like she's already doing so much. Like she does stuff. If they have a practice, she does stuff after practice. If it's game day,
Mm-hmm.
they have questions before the game, questions after the game, and I think she does two sets of pregame media like availability. So I wonder how that would be different in a different market. But at this point, like, would you listen to her answer games or answer questions in any interview? Like, she's like a pro. She's a seasoned vet at answering questions. It's to the point now where she kind of just like not says like the same things over and over, but like how some coaches like after a while it's like they kind of get into like that coach speak, and like
Yeah,
they're kind of
kind of
vanilla.
kind of like Bill Belichick in a way, just very
Uh,
short and just.
well, she's not short, but like
Well, no,
she
I know.
right, right, but like I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But yeah, the coach speak like she. I feel like other players they may act a little bit nervous. They don't know exactly what to say.
Oh, okay, I see what you're
They're
saying.
not, yeah, they're not used to the media coverage as much. But
Yeah,
with
yeah,
her, it's like she knows exactly what's going on. So yeah, I just she has she's probably heard every question ever in a press conference.
yeah. So, Caitlin Clark's crazy. That's just the end of the book. End that. That's the end of that segment.
He is not
Uh,
human. Yeah.
yeah. So we already talked about the Fever making the playoffs for the first time since 2016. Who do you think would be their best matchup in these upcoming playoffs?
So just looking at the standings right now, the top three teams are the Liberty, New York Liberty, Connecticut Sun, and Minnesota Lynx. And then after that, you have the Las Vegas Aces. But so okay, so the Liberty have 27 wins, Connecticut has 24 wins, the Lynx have 24 wins. So you're going to assume that it's probably going to be one of those top three teams, just based off where Indiana is at. So
Mm-hmm.
Indiana's in sixth, they're 18 and 16 after tonight's win against the Sparks. So it looks like the Fever are probably there a lot could shift or a little bit could shift between now and the end of the season, but like, I think they're going to be in that sixth spot. So, looking at the third spot right now, it's the Lynx. The Lynx are the last team that beat them. We talked about that earlier, but the thing that scares me about the Lynx is like their ball movement. They have Nafisa Collier, who's one of the best players in the league. And they're well coached. So I don't. I just think that's a tough matchup. But the Sun, they've recently beat the Sun, and I know like the previous three games this season between the Fever and the Sun, like the Fever lost, but I just feel like the Fever match up with the Sun pretty well. I don't think the Sun have like a player who's just going to go out there and score 30 points, which like that terrifies you. Like when you're playing the Fever, like um, huh, Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, they could all at least get 20. I think Melissa Smith could also get 20. Obviously, Lexi Hole has shown the ability to go off from 3-point range. So the Sun, Melissa Thomas is really good. DeWanna Bonner is really good. Dejanay Carrington, Marina Mabry is who they traded for with the Chicago Sky. So they have a good team. I just don't feel like they have anybody who's like totally going to scare you. So as far as like I don't think we like match up with the Sun super well as far as like their physicality and like their defense, but we've shown that like, hey, we could put up pretty good offensive numbers against the best defensive teams in the league. So, and the reason I don't really like the New York Liberty matchup is because of Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ines. I always mess up her last name. Sabrina, is it Ionescu?
Ionescu.
Ionescu? Okay.
Yeah, Ionescu.
All right. So I just feel like those two, like they can get their own shot. Their scores, they have playoff experience, and they kind of scare me a little bit more than the Sun. But yeah, in my opinion, it goes.
100% agree with you.
Yeah, it kind of goes, in my opinion, the Lynx, the Liberty, the Sun, and then the Aces are like the top four teams. And then like 5 and 6 would be the Storm and the Fever. I do think the Fever
Mhm.
are a little bit better than the Storm, but yeah, if I had to like, okay, just based off of right now, if I had to pick a team that we had to face, it would be the Sun.
Yeah, I definitely do not want the Liberty, and I do not want the Aces. The Aces, I mean, they're the fourth seed, so I mean, it's somewhat possible they could jump up a spot. But oh my man, they're just so good. I mean, Aja Wilson's probably gonna win MVP. I mean, she dropped like 40 or something a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week. I mean, just
Yeah, it was like
insane numbers from Aja.
yeah, like 42 and something, but she's kind of unstoppable, and she's pretty consistent. So, but the Aces too, like they have Kelsey Plum, Chelsea
Yep.
Gray. It's kind of been trending in the right direction as far as like getting back to like maybe knocking the rust off from earlier in the season. She's playing well, so yeah, I don't want to play the Aces. I don't want to play the Liberty, and then the Lynx. Like I said, I just think the Lynx are scary because they have a really good player and they just move the ball so well and are so well coached. So,
Right.
but hey, it's great that we're even having this conversation right now about who can the favor, what's the favorable matchup. It's pretty awesome we're having this conversation.
Man, if the Fever get into the second round, that's just gonna be crazy. I know we talked about last week about if they were to make it, Indiana was gonna be a great place to be. But if they go to the second round, we're talking some big time moves coming to Indy.
Oh yeah, I think so too. I just imagine how crazy Gainbridge Fieldhouse will be if they're hosting not only a playoff game but like a playoff game in the second round, and um, it would be interesting to see how like this run, how this season affects things moving forward with like with free agency, and then like who comes back, who doesn't come back. So yeah, it'd just be interesting as far as and the cool thing about like the first round is it's best of three. So I mean, there's no reason the Fever can't get hot for a couple games and win. So
Especially, I mean, they mentioned on the broadcast tonight, Lexi Hole's like 60 something percent from three since the Olympic break. I
yep,
mean,
absolutely.
and
There's like
Kelsey
18.
Mitchell can hit everything. Caitlin Clark, if she ever gets open, she'll hit it.
Yeah, so like I remember, so not to like talk about this too much, but um, obviously like they don't have a lot of the playoff experience, but like if you've seen Caitlin Clark play in like postseason, like the tournament, NCAA tournament, like okay, I think she's gonna handle it fine. I think they're gonna be juiced up and ready to go. So I don't see it being maybe the first game, they might be a little timid, but I just don't see that being a huge issue.
Even like Aaliyah Boston, I mean, South Carolina is dominant in the NCAA, and we saw her dominate at South Carolina for years. So, I mean, having them kind of as your two, not really main players, Chelsea Mitchell plays a big role, but for the two most recognizable players on the team, I believe, I think that's going to be huge for them.
Yeah, they're going to be hungry. I think all of them are going to be really hungry. They know how long it's been since they've been in the playoffs, so I don't think they're going to let this opportunity go to waste. So if they lose the first round, not the end of the world. They're ahead of schedule, but like the opportunity is right there in front of them.
All right, let's go rapid fire here. As we mentioned, this being recorded on Wednesday, the Fever just beat the Sparks in kind of an ugly game, but a win's a win. Kris, quick thoughts on tonight's game.
Yeah, so not the best looking win, but yeah, like you said, win and win, wins a win, especially this late in the season. But just quick thoughts. The Fever, I wrote about this a couple weeks ago about how the Fever can win games when they're not playing their best, which is kind of a different, it's different from previous years. So I thought that was something that I kind of took away from the game. They had 19 turnovers, 11 in the first half. I think, Drew, you said 8 in the first quarter.
Yeah, 8 in the first quarter, which I mean, 3 in the second quarter is not bad, but that 8 really stings.
It's just, yeah, it's just those bad stretches of play throughout games where you just have to clean it up, and they're good enough to where they can overcome that. Like just for example, like a couple times a night, like Caitlin Clark would have like a mini 5-0 run by herself, whether
Right.
that be like 5 points or a three and an assist. So The Fever can afford those bad stretches, but you don't want to do that late in the season and down the stretch. And I know this game, they clinched the playoffs this week. The Sparks are the worst team in the league as far as their record with only 7 wins. So like this is the game that was kind of felt like a trap game, but Fever ended up getting it done 93-86. So they're 18-6, 18-16 overall. Like we said, six in the league standings. But Caitlin Clark had a triple double, 24, 10, and 10. She got her last rebound on the very last shot of the game.
And the
This is
crowd
the funny part
goes
about that.
wild.
Yeah, but they like Kelsey Mitchell didn't even realize like why the crowd went wild, and she kind of put her hands up like, why are they cheering? And like, yeah, we won, but like that was a weird like it was a much louder cheer just for a rebound than you would ever hear. So she didn't even know what was happening. Caitlin Clark knew that she had got her triple double, but really other than Clark, Mitchell was pretty solid with 18. She didn't reach the 20-point mark, which is it's fine. She could have a she could have a game with 18 points, no problem. Alyssa Smith had 13, but Aaliyah Boston had 24 and 14, 24 points, 14 rebounds. So I thought she was just really solid down low. She was aggressive, and it was nice to see her after Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark have been scoring so much recently. It was nice to see Aaliyah Boston score and rebound, and also like I thought she was efficient too. So yeah, not the best win, but a win nonetheless.
One thing I did notice, and I think they mentioned on the broadcast, a great broadcast tonight, by the way. Um, LA was really good at getting back in transition on defense. So, and that kind of limited the Fever because they like to run and gun a lot. And so, one thing I noticed is that since they weren't given many opportunities to play fast, when they were given that opportunity, they were way too eager and they would miss gimme shots. And so that might be something that other teams will study up, especially come in playoff time, to see if they'll do that. But Fever just got to stay calm. I mean, you're in the playoffs. Tonight's win secured the 6th seed for now. So yeah, I'm fine with
Yeah,
that win.
one of the things Caitlin Clark said after the game was she didn't feel like the team played with really good pace, and that's what they've been doing really well lately. So, but I do think the Sparks had something to do with that, as far as getting back in transition. But one of the things that the Sparks did tonight too was they were blitzing ball screens, which they haven't. Other teams lately against the Fever haven't been doing that. So. I'm not saying that like that didn't have anything to do with like transition, but the Fever just seemed like, and I thought the play-by-play announcer Pat Boylan put it like perfectly. He's like, it seems like the Fever are like stuck in second gear, which that's what it
Yeah.
did seem like all. It's like they couldn't like get like a 10-0 run or 8-0 run like they usually can. But like, yeah, so like the pace was not great, but like we said earlier, like this is a game that like. Yeah, it matters with the seeding in the finals, final standings, but it just felt like a game that really just didn't matter a whole lot.
One thing that I wondered, since when has it become blitzing a screen? I thought it was just like a trap or a hard hedge. Like, since when has it been called blitzing?
Well, I think every team or every coach, they probably have different terminology. So what we probably call a hard hedge or a trap, or I think that would probably be the same thing as a blitz. But yeah, I'm not really sure where the blitzing thing came from. I
So
wasn't
I
really
never heard
familiar
of
with
that.
it. Okay, yeah. So this until this season in the WNBA, I don't know that I've like heard it. I think we've heard it called different things, but what
Right.
they usually will do is they'll do drop coverage. I mean, there's different ways to guard Clark in the ball screen, but like at the beginning of the season, like when she had all those turnovers where things were really new, blitzing the ball screens worked with her because there wasn't a lot of chemistry. But now as they figured things out, she was too good of a passer out of the blitzes to Boston or Melissa Smith or Timmy Fagbenle, whoever it was at that high post, like it was just like there's no point in blitzing her because she's just going to thread the needle and find that player. And then once you have the ball in the high post, especially like Aaliyah Boston, who's a good passer for a big, like
Hmm.
that's what you want on offense. Like you'll take that every day. Get the ball in the high post, kick it to shooters, drive. You got options right there. So, but I think since the Fever weren't really expecting that tonight and hadn't seen it lately, Los Angeles like head coach like Kurt Miller, who was on the Olympic staff, like I think that was a pretty good game plan from him to just like throw off the pace in the half court, but also get back in transition, which threw off the Fever's pace. But it's funny, like the Sparks just really aren't a great team. So like they did those things pretty well and they still lost. So I think it just kind of speaks to how far Indiana has come.
Yeah, they had a great game plan, and Sparks have been missing Cameron Brink all year, so it's not really an excuse for them anymore. But they should be good here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think so too. I think when she's back with Rakia Jackson, and a couple other players they have now, I think her last name's Hambry. So yeah, I think the future is pretty good for the Sparks. So
Kia Nurse did really good as well.
yeah, she had some nice. She was able to create her own shot on a couple plays. I thought was cool. So it's funny because not to go too far into this, but like even when you're playing like the last place team in the league, like they still have good players, and they're still like if you play bad, like you could get beat. So just it's kind of been fun to learn the different teams, learn the different players, but also like learn how competitive this league actually is.
It is on the up and up. And so with that, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you once again to our presenting sponsor, Beth Prince State Farm. Have a good weekend, everybody, and enjoy the nice weather. It's going to be 70s this weekend. Let's go. Fall's around the corner.
Love that.
We will see you around. Peace out, guys.